Have you ever noticed how the smartest people in the room are often the quietest? It's not a coincidence, and it's not because they don't have opinions. In fact, it's usually the opposite. In a world where everyone wants to be heard, silence has become a rare skill. Smart people understand the value of listening. They know that speaking isn't always the best way to contribute. Instead of rushing to fill silence, they observe, they process, they think before they speak. Talking less doesn't mean knowing less. It means knowing when to speak and when not to. It's not about being shy or reserved. It's about being intentional. They know that words carry weight, and the more carefully they're used, the more powerful they become. As the ancient philosopher Plato once said, "Wise men speak because they have something to say, fools because they have to say something." This highlights the difference between speaking with purpose and speaking just for the sake of filling silence. It reminds us that true wisdom isn't about saying the most words, but about speaking when it truly matters, when we have something meaningful to contribute. In today's world, we are often pressured to constantly share our thoughts, whether on social media, in meetings, or even in casual conversations. But the value of silence, of holding back until we have something valuable to say, can be incredibly powerful. Speaking too much can dilute the impact of our words. When we choose to speak only when necessary, our words are more likely to be respected, remembered, and taken seriously. This is a subtle but profound way to build credibility and gain the trust of those around us. There's an old saying that goes, if you can't change something in the next 5 or 10 minutes, don't bother bringing it up. This speaks to the wisdom of focusing only on what's actionable. If a situation can't be changed in the short term, bringing it up might only add frustration or confusion. It's important to remember that the person you're speaking to might already know the issue. They don't need it pointed out again or rubbed in their face. In those moments, silence can be more productive than speaking about something you can't fix right away. It's about choosing what's worth discussing and ensuring that your words add value, rather than stirring unnecessary emotions or distractions. When my best friend and I were younger, we would always end up shouting at each other whenever we had a disagreement. It seemed like the only way to get our points across, but looking back, all it did was escalate the tension. As we've grown older, though, we've learned that silence can be far more powerful than a loud exchange. Now, when we disagree, we give each other space to cool off. We understand that letting the emotions settle before responding with care helps us communicate better and maintain respect for one another. It took time, but that understanding of silence and conflict has been one of the most important lessons we've learned in our friendship. There's an old saying, empty vessels make the most noise. The loudest voices in the room aren't always the most knowledgeable or insightful. Often those who speak the most have the least to say. It's easy to fill a space with words, but true depth comes from understanding when to remain silent and when to speak with intention. Just because someone is speaking loudly doesn't mean they're saying anything of substance. In fact, the noise can sometimes drown out the voices that have real value. Think about it. When you're constantly filling the air with words, you don't leave room for reflection, and the true essence of communication can get lost. On the other hand, the quiet, reflective individuals often have the most meaningful things to share. Their words are carefully chosen and weighed, not thrown around aimlessly. The next time someone dominates the conversation with noise, remember that true wisdom doesn't need to shout. It speaks quietly but powerfully. The next time you're in a conversation, remember that the true strength of your words lies in their rarity and impact, not their frequency. Silence can be a sign of self-control, confidence, and the wisdom to know when it's better to listen than to speak. Sometimes the quietest people carry a heavy weight in their chest, one that nobody else can see. It could be pain, anxiety, or unspoken burdens that linger beneath the surface. They may not voice it, but that weight shapes how they move through the world. It's in those moments of silence when they process the weight of their own emotions. In many cases, their words aren't just carefully chosen. They're delivered with a depth that reflects the silent struggles they carry. Understanding this can deepen our empathy for others, recognizing that silence doesn't always mean absence of thought. It may be the result of profound internal work. Here's the psychological layer to it. Smart people often exhibit high emotional intelligence, the ability to recognize, understand, and manage both their own emotions and those of others. One key trait of emotionally intelligent individuals is that they pause before they respond. This isn't about being unsure or shy. It's about engaging what psychologists call response inhibition. Response inhibition is a cognitive process that allows the brain to hold back a habitual or impulsive reaction. In conversation, this means resisting the urge to speak, just to fill silence or gain attention. Instead, the brain assesses the situation, processes what was said, and decides on a thoughtful response, if one is even necessary at all. This kind of mental filtering is a sign of cognitive maturity and self-awareness. Smart people know that every word has an impact, so rather than reacting immediately, they choose their words carefully. They think not just about what they're going to say, but why they're saying it, and how it will affect others. This internal dialogue before speaking is a product of both intellect and emotional depth. Being extra careful about what to say is often a sign of high emotional intelligence. Emotionally intelligent individuals are acutely aware of how their words can affect others, and they choose their words with care to avoid causing harm or misunderstanding. They know that words have the power to heal or hurt, and they wield that power responsibly. This awareness doesn't just stem from intellectual knowledge, but from an emotional sensitivity to others' feelings and needs. It's a skill that allows them to communicate in ways that build trust, foster understanding, and create meaningful connections. Psychologically, this is also connected to introversion and personality theory. According to the Big Five personality traits, introverts tend to be more reflective and less driven by external stimulation. That doesn't mean they're less social. It just means they process thoughts internally before expressing them out loud. Many highly intelligent people, whether introverted or not, share this habit of thinking before speaking. Introverts in particular are known for being highly observant and good at reading people. They tend to watch and listen more than they speak, taking in the dynamics of a room, reading body language, and understanding the emotions of others before adding their own thoughts. This observant nature allows them to notice things others might overlook, nuances in conversation, unspoken tensions, or subtle cues that reveal deeper truths. Their silence isn't a sign of disinterest. It's a strategic choice to absorb the full context before speaking. In this way, introverts often have a deeper understanding of situations, which allows them to contribute in ways that others might not be able to. Their ability to read people gives them an emotional insight that helps guide their interactions and responses more effectively. Another powerful tool in effective communication is the art of asking questions. When used thoughtfully, questions open the door to deeper understanding and insight. Rather than filling the silence with our own words, asking the right questions allows us to engage with others in a meaningful way. It shows that we value their perspective and are interested in hearing what they have to say. A well-asked question invites the other person to share more, to elaborate, and to reflect, turning a simple exchange into a more profound conversation. It's not about asking just any question, but about asking ones that encourage thought, promote empathy, and foster connection. In this way, the act of listening and asking becomes just as valuable as speaking itself. Silence also plays a crucial role in conflict resolution. When emotions run high, the urge to speak up immediately can escalate a situation, making it harder to find common ground. In such moments, choosing silence can allow both parties to cool down and reflect, giving each person the time they need to gather their thoughts and process the conversation. This pause serves as a breather, breaking the cycle of reactive emotions and impulsive words. Silence creates a neutral space where each person can step back from their emotional triggers and assess the situation with more clarity. By refraining from speaking in the heat of the moment, you not only prevent saying something you might regret, but you also signal to the other person that you're willing to listen and understand. Silence, in this sense, is not passive. It's an active tool for creating space to resolve conflicts more effectively. It allows the conversation to shift from a potential confrontation to a more thoughtful dialogue, where both sides can express their perspectives calmly and respectfully. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do in a conflict is say nothing at all. This can create the opening for empathy, reconciliation, and ultimately, resolution. Timing plays a crucial role in how our words are received. Sometimes it's not just about what you say, but when you say it. Timing allows your message to resonate more deeply, and it can prevent unnecessary conflict or misunderstanding. Speaking too soon or too late can lead to misinterpretation, while speaking at the right moment can ensure your words land with impact. Understanding the dynamics of the situation, whether it's waiting for someone to fully express themselves or holding back until emotions have settled, can make all the difference in the effectiveness of your communication. The right timing shows awareness of the context and sensitivity to the emotions of others, demonstrating emotional intelligence at its best. Empathy is the cornerstone of meaningful communication. It's about more than just hearing what someone is saying. It's about understanding how they feel and why they feel that way. When we approach conversations with empathy, we connect with others on a deeper level, allowing us to respond in ways that are not only thoughtful, but also compassionate. Empathy helps us to pick up on subtle emotional cues, even when they're not spoken aloud. It allows us to tailor our words to the emotional state of the person we're speaking with, ensuring that our communication is both sensitive and effective. By stepping into someone else's shoes and seeing the world from their perspective, we create a safe space for open, honest dialogue, where both sides feel heard and valued. In fact, psychologist Daniel Goleman, who popularized the concept of emotional intelligence, suggests that being a good communicator doesn't mean talking more. It means knowing when to speak, how to speak, and sometimes knowing when not to speak at all. So when someone talks less, it might not be a lack of knowledge or confidence. It might be a sign of emotional regulation, mental discipline, and respect for the conversation itself. When you hear a quiet person finally speak, people tend to listen. Why? Because their silence builds credibility. Their words are chosen, not thrown. So what does this say about you? If you feel pressure to always have something to say, ask yourself why. Is it to impress? To avoid awkwardness? To feel in control? Or are you speaking simply because silence feels uncomfortable? Self-awareness is a sign of intelligence, and restraint is a form of wisdom. The less you speak, the more you start to notice, the more you observe, and eventually when you do speak, your words carry meaning, not noise. Sometimes it's important to remember that not every silent person is looking for advice or solutions. If someone is crushing inside, they may not have the energy or desire to hear unsolicited words, no matter how well intended. Instead of adding to their burden, we can offer support by simply being present, by listening without judgment, without the pressure to fix things. Just offering a safe space for them to express themselves, or even allowing them to be quiet, can be a greater gift than any advice. In these moments, the power lies in empathy and understanding, not in speaking. So next time you're in a conversation, try this. Pause. Listen more than you speak. Let others fill the space. And when you finally do speak, make sure it's because you have something to say, not just because you feel like saying something. In a noisy world, silence is power. Use it wisely.